Do you know why certain stories refuse to leave your mind? Why years later, after the breakup, after the betrayal, after everyone else moved on, you still remember certain scenes like they happened to you? A line, a look, a moment of silence in a movie that somehow understood your pain better than real people did. And at 2 a.m., when the room is quiet and your thoughts start getting louder, those stories come back. Not because they entertained you, because they exposed something inside you that never fully healed. Before we go deeper, subscribe to the channel right now if you're tired of surface-level advice and empty motivational noise. This channel is for people who want the raw truth about modern relationships, emotional psychology, heartbreak, loneliness, attraction, and the hidden mental battles nobody talks about. Like this video if you've ever felt emotionally attached to a story that understood you better than real people did. And comment truth below if you're ready for a conversation most people are too afraid to have. Because tonight, we're talking about the real reasons certain stories never leave you. And honestly, once you understand this, you'll never watch movies the same way again. Here's the part nobody talks about. The stories that stay with you forever are usually connected to emotions you never fully processed. That's why men rewatch certain films after breakups, after betrayal, after divorce, after loneliness starts creeping in at 2 in the morning. It isn't random. The mind searches for emotional reflection, something that understands the chaos happening internally. And the Hunger Games became massive for a reason. Because underneath the survival games, underneath the violence, underneath the political system, it's really a story about emotional conflict, internal war, suppressed desire, identity, and the terrifying process of becoming conscious of who you really are. That's why millions connected with Katniss Everdeen, not because she was perfect, but because she felt emotionally trapped. And most people feel trapped, especially modern men. Trapped between who they are and who the world demands they become. Trapped between emotional honesty and emotional suppression. Trapped between wanting love and fearing humiliation. Long before dating apps, social media, and modern relationship podcasts, there was Sigmund Freud. And whether people agreed with him or not, he understood one terrifying thing about human beings. Most people are strangers to themselves. They think they know why they fall in love, why they become obsessed, why rejection hurts so much, why betrayal changes them forever. But according to Freud, the real reasons usually exist underneath consciousness, buried, hidden, suppressed. And honestly, that idea alone explains modern dating better than most relationship advice online. Because most people aren't dating consciously. They're reacting emotionally, repeating patterns, chasing emotional familiarity, trying to heal old wounds through new people. And that's where everything becomes dangerous. Because attraction is rarely logical. At first, a man thinks he likes somebody because she's beautiful, mysterious, or exciting. But deep down, his nervous system is recognizing emotional familiarity. Maybe emotional distance feels attractive because distance was normal during childhood. Maybe unpredictability feels exciting because chaos became emotionally familiar years ago. Maybe anxiety gets mistaken for chemistry. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think intensity means connection. But sometimes intensity is just unresolved pain wearing the mask of romance. That truth changes everything. Because once a person realizes emotions can lie, they start becoming more conscious of the people they allow into their lives. And honestly, awareness is painful, because awareness destroys illusions. A man realizes he wasn't unlucky in relationships. He ignored red flags because he feared loneliness more than disrespect. A woman realizes she kept chasing emotionally unavailable people because inconsistency felt emotionally familiar. And that realization hits hard, especially at night, especially after silence. Because silence forces confrontation. Modern life gives people endless distractions to avoid confronting themselves. Notifications, entertainment, validation, endless scrolling, endless noise. Anything to avoid sitting alone with unresolved emotions. But eventually the distractions stop working. Eventually reality catches up. And that's when stories start hitting differently. A movie you watched at 16 suddenly destroys you at 30, not because the story changed, because you changed. Now you understand heartbreak. Now you understand emotional exhaustion. Now you understand betrayal. Now you understand what it feels like to lose yourself while trying to be loved. And honestly, that's why emotionally powerful stories become unforgettable. They don't just entertain you, they expose you. They reveal parts of your psychology you've been avoiding. That's why certain scenes feel personal, because psychologically, they are personal. Your unconscious mind attaches itself to emotional symbolism. A lonely man watches a character fighting for connection and suddenly sees himself. A betrayed woman watches somebody rebuilding after emotional devastation and finally feels understood. People don't connect to perfection, they connect to emotional truth. And emotional truth is messy, confusing, contradictory, painful. That's why real stories survive forever. Because real emotions never disappear completely. Most people think time heals everything, but time alone heals nothing. Awareness heals, understanding heals, processing heals, and honestly, most people never truly process emotional pain. They suppress it, hide it under work, relationships, fake confidence, emotional detachment, or constant distraction. But buried emotions never disappear. They wait. Then they return through anxiety, jealousy, anger, emotional numbness, overthinking, or self-destruction. And this is what modern dating rarely talks about. People bring unresolved emotional wounds into relationships every single day. That's why somebody can love you and still hurt you. That's why emotionally unavailable people still crave intimacy. That's why somebody can promise loyalty while secretly fearing commitment. Human beings are emotionally complicated, and social media made everything worse. Because now people compare their emotional lives to curated illusions online. Everybody looks happy, everybody looks desired, everybody looks replaceable, and deep down that creates fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of inadequacy, fear of emotional irrelevance, especially for men. Because modern men are emotionally starving in silence. Most men don't talk honestly about loneliness. They joke about it, hide it, distract themselves from it. But loneliness changes people. It changes how they think, trust, love, and see themselves. A lonely man starts craving validation from everywhere, and if he never becomes conscious of that emotional hunger, he becomes vulnerable to manipulation. That's why emotionally unhealthy relationships become addictive. Not because they're healthy, because they temporarily soothe emotional emptiness. And honestly, that's terrifying. Because some people spend years chasing relationships that are psychologically destroying them. They stay because they fear starting over. They stay because emotional chaos became familiar. They stay because being chosen feels more important than being respected. And eventually, they lose themselves completely. That's why emotional self-awareness matters. Not for becoming cold. Not for becoming detached. For survival. Because emotionally unconscious people repeat the same suffering endlessly. Same emotional pain. Different face. Same attachment cycle. Different relationship. And great stories expose those patterns beautifully. That's why Fight Club connected so deeply with men. Underneath the rebellion and violence, it was really about male emptiness, identity collapse, and modern isolation. The terrifying realization that success without meaning still feels empty. And millions of men secretly understood that feeling. The feeling of performing strength while emotionally collapsing internally. The feeling of being surrounded by people while still feeling unseen. The feeling of becoming emotionally numb because vulnerability started feeling dangerous. And honestly, emotional numbness destroys relationships. Because intimacy requires honesty, not performance, not pretending, honesty. But many people spend their entire lives hiding emotionally, even from themselves. That's why modern relationships feel exhausting. Everybody is guarded, testing each other, protecting ego, avoiding vulnerability. Nobody wants to look foolish. Nobody wants to get hurt, but real connection always requires emotional risk. And deep down, everybody knows it. That's why emotionally detached people still crave closeness. Why? Avoidant people secretly fear abandonment. Why emotionally cold people are often carrying the deepest loneliness. Because human beings were never designed to live emotionally disconnected from one another. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. The stories that stay with you forever are usually revealing the parts of yourself you never fully understood. So if this video spoke to you, subscribe, like the video, and comment aware below. Because healing begins the moment you finally stop running from your own mind. And sometimes the truth that hurts you most is the truth that finally frees you.